Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you are joining live, say hello in the chat. Let me know where you are watching from today. And you are in the right place if you want to hear more about setting stronger boundaries. Because if you are like most people, then this year has been a year of burnout, exhausting yourself, and I want you to know that as we come to the end of the year now, we're in the final stretch of 2023. It is time to reclaim your time, your energy for next year by setting stronger boundaries. So, again, if you are joining live, please say hello in the chat. Let me know that you are watching, you can hear me, you can see me okay. And we'll dive right into our topic for today. So, you may be someone who is telling yourself, well, I know I need to set healthier limits. I know I need to start saying no more. The only problem is you might be getting in your own way. So, before we go any further with our discussion today, I want to introduce myself quickly. I am Melody Wilding. I am the author of a book called Trust Yourself. Stop overthinking and channel your emotions for success at work. I'm an executive coach to people I call sensitive strivers, which is a term I have coined that refers to professionals who are both highly sensitive, meaning they think and feel everything, but they are also more high achieving. They put a lot of pressure on themselves to succeed. Now, my clients are leaders, they are managers, they are high level individual contributors at some of the world's biggest companies: Google, Microsoft, Amazon, IBM, the list goes on. And while they look successful on the outside, they struggle internally with things like self doubt, imposter syndrome, taking things too personally, and struggling to say no because they want people to like them. They don't want to be mean or rude. And they tend to put their needs behind everybody else's, or they tend to put other people's needs ahead of their own. So, if all of that sounds familiar, you are in the right place. And you will be very excited to know that 1 week from today, November 14th at 3 p.m., I am hosting a free workshop called Build Boundaries Like a Boss. And you are invited. The free workshop is perfect for you. And actually, let me say you can join by taking out your phone. There's a QR code here on the screen. So just take out your phone, open the camera app, and scan that QR code. It will bring you right to the Zoom page to sign up. You can also head to melodywilding.com/boundaries, and that'll bring you to the same page. So this training is going to be perfect for you if you are a sensitive striver who struggles to say no, if you are saying yes all the time, if you are someone who is frequently overextending yourself, if you readily accommodate others. Someone asks to change a meeting, and even though you've blocked out time, you still accommodate and change the time. If you feel guilty for speaking up for what you need. And in this training, I am going to share with you a 4-part framework to set stronger boundaries that are actually effective. We're going to talk about ways to communicate your boundaries with coworkers, managers, leaders. I'm going to give you specific phrasing and scripts to use so you can do that without feeling like you're being mean or you're going to put yourself at risk of being fired. And we're going to talk more about how do you protect your time? How do you disconnect from work so you can actually enjoy a life outside of work? So make sure you scan that QR code here on the screen to grab your free spot. Sometimes we have over 1,000 people join this training. So you definitely want to make sure you register. So again, that QR code is here on the screen. We're looking forward to seeing you there, and it's completely free. There's no cost to attend. We'll do some Q&A at the end. And even if you can't make it live, still register. We will send you the replay. All right, let me say hello to some of you that are here. If you are joining live, say hello in the chat so I can shout you out. Amber, wonderful to see you. Carmen in Pennsylvania. Aman. Let's see, Louise. Shauna in Texas. Excellent. Excellent. Amber asked, will the training be an hour? Yes, it will be a 60-minute training, 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern time, so New York City time. All right, so with that, let's get into today's topic, which is setting stronger boundaries. What I want to do today is give you 3 powerful mental shifts to start embracing, because often what happens the most with boundaries is that we get in our own way. And it's often our own mental self-talk around why we can't say no, our fears of disappointing or upsetting others that often prevent us from taking steps towards setting boundaries the most. So I want you to imagine, just play along with me for a moment, that your team is in a meeting. You're discussing a new project, you're starting to wrap up, and your boss assigns out responsibilities. You're getting to the end where, they're doling out responsibilities. And they assign many responsibilities to you on top of your already overflowing plate. How do you feel in that moment? Just type a word or a phrase in the chat. How do you feel in that moment when you are getting more things assigned to you and your to-do list is already a mile long? Go ahead, type a word or phrase in the chat. You might feel overwhelmed, frustrated. Maybe you're nervous. How in the world am I going to get all of this work done? You want to speak up. You want to push back, but something stops you. You just can't bring yourself to do it. Yeah, Louise was saying anxious. So does any of this sound familiar? I know this is so common among my clients. I can't tell you how many people will come to work with me and they'll say, I've gotten to the mid-level of my career. I've been promoted before. They may be people managers, and they will say, no one ever taught me this skill of saying no. And for so many of us, saying yes, volunteering for opportunities is how we grow in our career. And I want to be clear that I'm not advocating to set boundaries and say no to everything, but you do have to be selective and you do have to protect your time and energy for what matters most. So some of you were saying, I would feel anxious, overwhelmed, exhausted, avoidant, frustrated. Yeah. Now I want you to type in the comments, when you think of the idea of setting boundaries, of saying no, what comes to mind for you? What holds you back from using your voice in the way you want to? Again, just type a word or phrase in the chat. What comes to mind when you hear the idea of setting boundaries? And what holds you back from using your voice in the way you want to? Maybe you feel concerned that pushing back would call into question your commitment, that you won't look like a team player or someone who's willing to pitch in at a time when everyone is doing multiple jobs. Maybe you think it will highlight that you don't know what you're doing, because if you did know what you were doing, wouldn't you just say yes to this and get it done? Or that it may compromise your ability to advance. Yeah. And Amber was saying we had offending someone. Amber said that it will impact you if you don't do what others do, right? That it will come back to bite you. Carmen said letting other people down. This type of guilt and fear is incredibly common. And as I said, this is the number one reason I see sensitive strivers struggle to set boundaries and say no. But it doesn't mean that just because you have these thoughts or these assumptions about what will happen when and if you do try to set boundaries, it doesn't mean you have to be a victim or held back by these patterns. So just like anything, it is entirely possible to practice new thoughts and to change these beliefs, to rewire your mindset around the value and the importance of saying no. And I want to help set you on that path today. And remember, if you haven't yet, grab your spot in that Build Boundaries Like a Boss training. The QR code is here on the screen. Today, I want to give you some primer around the mindset you need to say no. And in that training, we're going to go deeper on the tactics, the scripts. What do you say? How do you say it? What do you do if someone doesn't accept your no? So make sure you have grabbed your spot in that training, melodywilding.com/boundaries. So let's get into those reframes, these 3 mental shifts I want you to take away from this time now and begin embracing. All right. And as I'm going along, as I'm sharing these, please help your neighbors out, take notes in the chat, and share what is resonating with you. And more importantly, how are you going to apply it? Because insight without taking action and application is useless. So, our first reframe is that it's not selfish to set boundaries, it's selfish not to. I'm going to say that again. It's not selfish to set boundaries. It's selfish not to. So think about it this way. Stretching yourself too thin isn't fair to anyone. It's not fair to your boss, your colleagues, your team, your family, your friends, and most of all, to yourself. You might think you are being generous and helpful by agreeing to do something. But if you can't follow through on your promises or you do it with resentment, that is not a recipe for high performance or your own personal happiness. It's important to realize that a clear boundary serves everyone. Everyone likes to know where they stand. And again, in the training, we're going to go deeper into what are ways you can phrase and present your boundary in a way where it comes off as a win-win, that actually shows how does this serve the other person. So that's our first reframe. It's not selfish to set boundaries. It's selfish not to. Someone go ahead and type that in the chat. That brings us to our second reframe, which is that setting boundaries doesn't erode your confidence, it builds it. So I know many of you may think that setting boundaries will make you feel like a failure, like you have let people down and you have disappointed them. But I like to say all the time that you build credibility with yourself in proportion with the number of promises you keep to yourself, or the number of difficult situations you encounter and you overcome. So every time you assert yourself, every time you stand up for what is important to you, you protect your time and your energy, that's like another deposit in your self-confidence bank account. You are subtly proving and affirming to yourself that your desires, preferences, needs should be valued just as much and are just as important as anyone else's. And that's important here because I think there's a lot of talk around how put yourself first, you're the most important person in your life. And if that works for you, awesome. But I like to see it as a both and, that your own needs may not necessarily be more important than someone else's, but they are just as important as someone else's. The other thing to keep in mind here is that when you start saying no or setting boundaries, setting limits, you set a positive example. You teach other people to respect your boundaries, which can teach them how to respect all people's voices, needs, preferences. So if you're a sensitive striver who really cares about doing your part to make the workplace more equitable, to set an example where others feel empowered to speak up for themselves and push back and create that sort of psychological safety, then you have to lead first. All right, that is our second reframe. Setting boundaries doesn't erode your confidence, it builds it. Okay? Someone help me out. Go ahead, type that in the chat. And as I'm going along, let me know what is resonating with you. Our final reframe, our third and final reframe, Setting boundaries and saying no to situations, people, goals that you don't want or that don't serve you helps you say yes to the ones that do. So, saying no to one thing means you can say yes to another thing. So, this is something I talk about in my book, Trust Yourself, that setting healthy limits frees you up. It gives you bandwidth to interact with people in more productive ways, to pursue projects that are more meaningful to you, to focus on doing work that you enjoy. So I want you to change your focus because so many of us zero in on everything we potentially have to lose when we set boundaries. But I want you to shift that and consider what you stand to gain. And I want you to ask yourself that question. Go ahead and type in the chat what comes up for you. What do you stand to gain when you set stronger boundaries? What are the possibilities? What would be possible for you with stronger limits? How would you feel about yourself? Would you feel more confident, more secure, more grounded, more energetic and restored? What would you be able to accomplish or achieve that you might not be able to now? Maybe there's a certain project you've been putting off that you just haven't had the bandwidth for. Maybe there's a certain hobby outside of work that you would pursue. So, what would that be for you? What would be possible for you with stronger boundaries? Go ahead and type that in the chat. So, I want to repeat those 3 reframes one more time. And I want you to let me know in the comments which one of these stands out as most powerful for you at this moment for yourself. So, number 1, it's not selfish to set boundaries. It's selfish not to. Number 2, setting boundaries doesn't erode your confidence, it builds it. And saying no to what doesn't serve you helps you say yes to what does. If you are ready to get out of your own way, if you want to set stronger boundaries heading into the rest of this year and the new year, then I really, really want to encourage you to join us at this free training that is happening 1 week from today, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. In this Build Boundaries Like a Boss training, we're going to talk about how to stop feeling guilty and start prioritizing your own needs, how to identify and create boundaries that protect you from burnout. And we're going to go through that 4D framework for setting stronger boundaries in the workplace. And like I said, I want to make sure you leave that training with some concrete tools and scripts and strategies that you can use. So the QR code is here on the screen. Take out your phone, scan that. It'll bring you right to the registration page, or you can head to melodywilding.com/boundaries. Excellent. Yes, Carmen was saying stronger boundaries enable me to be more focused and confident when I do say yes, 100%. Amber said, I need to take care of myself so that I can help others. Yeah, that's such a counterintuitive shift that your rest needs to be a prerequisite for your performance. It is not a reward for good work. That's a real mindset shift because we've always been conditioned the other way. And Louise was saying, what's possible? Becoming a kinder, less anxious version of myself, more confident in demonstrating the importance of self-care. I love that. And Amber was saying, I can't wait for this class. This has been a recent topic because I feel guilty when I do take downtime. Yes, Amber, you are not alone in that. And I think particularly as we get towards the end of the year where there's a lot of pressure, both personally and professionally, a lot of demands on all of our plate. It tends to be the time of year where we think about winding down, yet in practice, it can feel like anything but that. So that's why we're doing this now, because we want to set you up for success in the final weeks of 2023 and so that you can start 2024 strong. So again, make sure you register using that QR code or head to melodywilding.com/boundaries. Yes, the event will be recorded, so no worries if you can't make it, if you're in a different time zone. And yes, there will be plenty of time for Q&A, as well as a special surprise for attendees. So there is no cost to attend. I will also make sure the link is in the comments here. Amber said, new mindset, new year, 100%. And Carmen, this is a great note to end on today. She said, a lot of us have to reprogram our brains because we were taught that setting boundaries is selfish. 100%, Carmen. And I hope these mindset shifts that I shared today are helpful to you. If it's even more helpful to you, write these down. Keep them on a Post-it note on your desk so you keep them front of mind and you begin practicing them, because that's how you make them second natures. You keep them front of mind. You start seeing your day-to-day and your work through this different lens. Okay, everyone, that is all for today. I will see you very soon, and I hope to see you at the event next week. Take care, everybody.